All right, one part dosing. All started in 2016 when I started my 30 BioCube, and I got a few corals in there, and I was doing 5-gallon water changes, and then my corals started to suffer a little bit. I was checking my alkalinity, and it was dropping below 7, so I had to do something. And the guy at the fish store was giving me some CARBO-CALCIUM stuff. He's like, "Oh, put it in there," and what it was alkalinity. I wasn't sure at the time. And I would put the alkalinity in and I would fix it, and then my calcium would drop, and there's your two-part problem. Is that when you're giving two-part, it's not a problem, but you just have to give the same amount of both. Now I dose B-ionic to adjust levels, and with my calcium reactor and with my Kalkwasser if I need to, if I run out or if I'm changing something and they get off, I use two-part. I put them in as the same. But when I didn't have dosing pumps, and I do it by hand because I don't use it much, but when I didn't have dosing pumps, putting in two-part, I was worried about the balance getting off, and I just didn't ever want to have to worry about that balance getting off. So I looked at my one-part options. One-part options at the time, 3.5 years ago, were Kalkwasser and calcium reactors. So I started with Kalkwasser, and I watched the JBJ 45 on CJ's aquariums, and he was using it, and I was like, all right, cool, it works, his tank's nice, I'll use that. So I did a lot of research on it. There's some nice articles on it. The basic idea is that you take this fine powder in here and you mix it in RO water, and it gives you a solution. And actually it's going right now, and there's the tube coming out, and I run it through it's actually running right now, 1.1 milliliter per minute doser, because it is a pH of 10, and so it goes in very slowly. Wait for it. There it goes. And so it doesn't raise my pH too fast. Now, that being said, for safety, I do have a pH probe right there, that yellow guy. And on my Apex Junior, if the pH goes over 8.45, it shuts it off. So there is a safety there. So with two-part, you can unbalance your ions, calcium and alkalinity. It raises the salt in the tank, so you have to watch salinity. And it costs a little more, you have to replace it. The Kalkwasser is really cheap. But I started with it, and that's what I'm comfortable with. And it's called old school, and other people say that two parts pretty easy. And I believe it is now that I'm looking at it. So I'm using Calc Plus 2, which I just used BRS Kalkwasser for the longest time, but this has magnesium and strontium in it, so I actually get, magnesium and, strontium. So I'm really dosing pretty much everything that I need for, this tank, and then a water change, 5-gallon water change once a month, once every 2 weeks, we'll do the rest. So the deal with the Kalkwasser is you can take 2 teaspoons per gallon, and it will mix up. And if you go over 2 teaspoons per gallon, it will turn into powder on the bottom. I don't even know if you can see the powder on the bottom, but it won't saturate. You put more in there, it'll just be more and more on the bottom. So it only mixes to a certain concentration. That concentration is pretty weak. Okay. If you put vinegar in, for every 15 milliliters of vinegar, when you match that up with a teaspoon, it will allow you to add a whole nother teaspoon. Okay, so what I mix up is, these are 2-gallon jugs. So on the 1-gallon thing, I would be doing 45 milliliters of vinegar and 3 teaspoons or 1 tablespoon of calc. So what I do, and I've been doing this for 3 years, is I do 90 milliliters of vinegar, 2 tablespoons of calc, and this lasts for like 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, the Apex is set to run this guy for 12 minutes every hour, all day long, for 24 hours. So 12 minutes on, 48 minutes off. And I test my alkalinity, and if I need more alkalinity, I go to 13 minutes or 12 and 30 seconds. If I need less, I go to 11 and 30 seconds, or I usually go like 15-second intervals. And that's how I get my alkalinity up and down. Okay, so that's how I use Kalkwasser. Other folks, this is my ATO here. All right, this is I got a Tom's Aqua Lifter and some float valves there. There's my go in. some people will just put Kalkwasser right in there, just like a teaspoon in 2 gallons or something. They'll start small, they'll go up. You know, you always start small and go up, right? And that's a good thing. What I found is my fan kicks on, my evaporation changes during the year. I can't, you know, I put more coral in, I take more coral out. I can't change, you know, my alkalinity, and I test my alkalinity 2 or 3 times a week with a hand checker. I need it to be stable. I can't have it swinging, or else that's it. You know, it's just the way it is. The corals don't like it. So I find by just making its own container, making it up like a Vata two-part. This is my container I'll make next. You know, when this one gets low, I'll just fill this one up. You have to let it sit there for an hour to let it settle out, or else it's, you know, really strong. So you just put RO water, the vinegar, and the calc in there, or the RO water and just the calc, and you wait an hour and it settles down and it becomes clear like that. And then you can start dosing it. So I'll mix it up, leave it overnight or something, then I'll switch them over and I'll have my other container. So I just have 2 containers. So this is a really easy thing, and Kalkwasser is cheap. This thing will last me, for this tank, it's like $8, and it'll last me 6 months, somewhere around there. So that's good. All right. Now, once Kalkwasser wasn't enough. Now, because remember I said Kalkwasser isn't that strong. Okay, so it can do, now it does a decent amount. Now I have a lot of evaporation. See, this is open, okay, and then it's not a ton. I mean, my between that Kalkwasser and those, you know, I go through, you know, it's a 25-gallon tank. I go through 2 or 3 gallons a week. All right, but on my BioCube, the top was on there, and the evaporation was not enough. It just didn't evaporate much at all because it had a top. So I couldn't put more calc in. And then I was growing a lot of stuff, and my alkalinity was going below 7. So I got and actually it's over here. I got a little calcium reactor. It's kind of hard to tell there, but that's a Aquamax Nano. I don't know if they make those anymore. But anyways, they're smallest Aquamax, and I still recommend them. That thing worked great. So I was actually running both of those on my, and if you go to my playlist, you'll see the whole setup. It's ridiculous. It's all behind BioCube. On the BioCube playlist. But I put the calcium reactor on there. Now the calcium reactor takes aragonite or old coral. I've got some more. You know, this is what I'm using now, the 2 little fishies. All right, takes that. Here's the bag actually. I just refilled my other one. Reborn and magnesium. That's the Remag. Okay, I just filled up my Nano. I'm going to do a video on that one, or my Geo. So that gives calcium and alkalinity in equal parts, just like Kalkwasser. And I don't even know if I mentioned that, but Kalkwasser just puts in calcium and alkalinity at the same rate. Okay, and I can't believe I forgot that, but that's why it's a 1-part. Okay, that's what makes a 1-part. A 2-part puts in calcium and alkalinity in 2 solutions. A 1-part just means that it's going in one liquid. Okay, they can't get unbalanced. All right, so and I don't have to worry about it. I just put it in, and so when I do that, I only have to check alkalinity. I don't have to check calcium anymore. I do once a month. You know what I mean? Magnesium, once I know that it's good, I don't have to check it because it's all going in at the same rate. And as long as alkalinity is good, everything else is good. So, all right. So the calcium reactor does the same thing. It drips in one little tube like that, and it all goes in. Now, if I had to do it all over again 3 years later, Bulk Resupplies selling Tropic Marine CARBO-CALCIUM. CARBO-CALCIUM is a 1-part liquid solution that gives you what Kalkwasser does and what the calcium reactor does in a powder. You can get it in a liquid, or you just get it in a jar like this, and you can just mix it up. The big difference between that and Kalkwasser is it's like 16 times stronger. Okay, so this jar of CARBO-CALCIUM would last me, months. All right, you wouldn't need a large dosing container. You could, SPS it out. You could have huge bioload. You could have low evaporation, and you'd be able to give, your corals what they need. Now, they also sell a Part C and that will have your trace elements and your magnesium and everything else you need. So you could actually do the CARBO-CALCIUM in part C. Bulk resupply talks about this, and you basically have everything you need. But again, it puts in calcium. It gives an alkalinity that bacteria can eat, and then it gives alkalinity to your tank. But again, one dosing pump, not a forehead. You know what I mean? One thing. It can't get off balance. And this is kind of new to reefing because it was all, you know, 2-part for the longest, and so I can't knock it. This BRS 2-part stuff, people get amazing results with that. I've told people, you know, why don't you do it this way, and they say, because I've used 2-part forever, I'm not going to fix it. And they got tanks full of SPS. So if you're using 2-part, that's great. I'm a 1-part guy. I always will be, and the main reason is that I just test alkalinity. I haven't used my calcium test. I don't use my calcium test anymore. I've got a nice one here. Oh, where is it? Yeah, see, it's underneath that. Right, I got my nitrate magnesium up. I test my calcium when I send in my ICP test every 3 or 4 months, and then it comes back and it tells me. So, and it's always been good. You know what I mean? So I got nothing. You know, a water change occasionally will get it back to right, but I just don't even need to check it anymore. And the less time I spend doing testing, the more time I get to spend playing with my corals and fragging and doing other maintenance. And then, you know, the more time I have, the more time I can just enjoy my corals. So I hope that was helpful. Just a beginner guide on why I do that. A little bit in depth on the calcium. So when I set up my, I got a new frag tank coming. I'm gonna choose between Kalkwasser and CARBO-CALCIUM, and I think the CARBO-CALCIUM is going to win because I'm going to be able to make a big vat of it and not change it, and you know, that's a win in my book, especially if it's cheap. So we'll see how that goes. I know, like I said, Ryan from BRS has been running on his tank for months now, and he hasn't stopped. So all right, y'all enjoyed. Keep it easy. Bye.